Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening everyone. My name is Jiwan Kim and I'm really happy to present my first SIGCHI paper here. Today, I'll present SonarID, which uses sonar to identify fingers on an off-the-shelf smartwatch. This work is done at Unist Interactions Lab with my advisor, Oakley. Interaction with smartwatches has been limited by the small size of their touchscreen for text input and function key arrangement. To address this issue, a finger identification interface can support richer input by assigning different functionality to different fingers. The finger identification was frequently proposed for increasing the expressivity of user interaction on mobile devices. However, they often relied on external devices or explicit instructions. In this paper, we explored a novel approach to natural and unencumbered finger identification on an unmodified smartwatch using Sonar. Sonar is one of the promising modalities for this purpose. It has been explored in previous works by using the speakers and microphones built into smart devices and does not require instrumentation on the body. But it was rarely explored in the off-the-shelf smartwatch with a single microphone. So we proposed SonarID, which can identify tapping fingers on an off-the-shelf smartwatch using an inaudible sonar signal without external equipment. This is an overview of our system. During a screen touch, a speaker on one side of smartwatch emits an inaudible sonar signal, and a microphone on the other side receives it in multiple pathways. For example, direct paths, hand reflection paths, and a body reflection path. At here, we used the Jiwan sequence for the signal that modulated over a carrier wave. The received signal was demodulated and processed to create a sonar fingerprint for training a deep learning model. To calculate the spatial information from sonar reflection, we conducted the autocorrelation between the recorded audio signal and Jiwan sequence for every 1024 samples. Consequently, generated sonar fingerprint has a spatio-temporal image, and which is composed of the number of samples representing spatial information and the number of Jiwan sequences representing the temporal information. By training sonar fingerprints in a simple CNN model, we could identify which finger performed the touch among thumb, index, and middle fingers. Then, how does the classification work? In brief, the sonar reflections are due to both the gross movement of the hand over a watch and the changes in hand pose that tapping with different fingers entails. SonarID could classify fingers from their similarity of hand pose and motion for each finger tap. This figure shows examples of sonar fingerprint of recorded data for no input, and for a sequence of 3 periodic taps with thumb, index, and middle finger made by a single user. Visual examination of these images suggests that the sonar fingerprints generated by different events are sufficiently unique to support accurate finger classification. For example, index finger taps showed limited additional reflection, while the thumb and middle finger taps both present stronger proximate signal peaks and distinctive sets of more distant reflection. Then, from now on, I'll explain how we designed the experiment and the result of it. The study was designed around one key variable, fingers. In order to capture a range of touches, we laid out 7 targets in a circular arrangement, one in the center, surrounded by 6 others. Total 16 subjects participated in this experiment. Before start, each subject determined the most comfortable hand pose for tapping smartwatch for 5 minutes. After indicating they were ready, the study began, and each trial involved 500 milliseconds of fixation period with default pose. Participants tapped the target with the appropriate finger with their optimal pose. This is our result. We constructed 3 kinds of model. First, general model for testing general classification accuracy by training all participants' data. Second, individual models by training each participant's own data. Lastly, Ribbon-bound model using data from each participant as a final test set for a model trained by all other participants' data. General and individual models showed a similar performance of up to 93.7%, which is sufficient to support a wide range of practical applications. In Ribbon-bound model, the mean performance is reduced to about 85%. This suggests that within our relatively small sample, the sonar fingerprints created by each user's tapping behavior were somewhat specific to that user. In confusion matrix, classification performance peaks with the index finger, while the thumb and middle are more frequently confused, and this effect is particularly prominent in Ribbon-bound models. And here, we could extract following implications. First, it suggests that performance in a two-class task like separating the index tiles from those of other fingers would be high, up to 96.8%. Secondly, it likely reflects the diversity of strategies we observed for middle and thumb taps. This figure illustrates observed participant hand pose variation. While index tests were universal, there were several different strategies such as tucking in or extending unused fingers during a thumb or middle taps. This diversity may have increased the difficulty of classification. As such, larger training sets may be able to more clearly separate finger touches based on various different strategies. In addition to raw audio, we captured the following measures: movement time and touch time. The movement time of index finger is significantly faster than thumb or middle finger, and which indicate thumb and middle finger involved additional hand movement due to default pause in fixation period. However, there was the significant main effect in touch time. This analysis helps to shed light on user behavior and the features that enable SonarID to discriminate between fingers. In this study, we only explored a single study. Our next step will cover standing pose and diverse hand poses. While performance may change if data is captured from more diverse poses, by conducting research procedure, we note that our current results indicate proximate sonar reflection from 9 cm, involving just touching fingers and hand, lead to relatively high accuracy levels of up to 89%. This result suggests SonarID may be resilient to changes in upper arm or body poses. In terms of time, periods before the touch midpoint showed modest improvement over those after it, which means we can avoid the latency issue by relying on the data gathered up until a touch occurs. We also note that SonarID has a strong potential for combining other modalities. For example, tri-tap shows the strongest performance in distinguishing the thumb and confuses between index and middle. Since we showed strong performances for classifying index finger, a multimodal combination of these two approaches would be highly complementary. Lastly, we will share our source code for implementation. And if you have any question or interest in our project, feel free to contact us. Thank you.